Gina. Today I am going to show you how to make this crystal cluster necklace. This is using the beads in the midnight blue treasure bag. However, this is a very basic technique and you can use any beads that you have on hand. As long as you have a few larger crystals, different shapes of crystals, you can do this. And we will discuss that further in the tutorial itself. But this is what we're going to make today. Let me get you in close so you can see how pretty it is. How pretty the focal area is. And then we're also going to be making a set of earrings. This actually looks prettier when it's hanging than when it's laying on the desk. However, that's kind of difficult to show in camera. But this is what we're going to make today. And let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this project. Okay, for this project today, we're going to be using a whole bunch of stuff from the Midnight Blue Treasure Bag. It's left over from projects I already did from the Midnight Blue Treasure Bag, plus some that I haven't used yet. So, with this project, you can do this with any crystal beads that you have. You do not have to have the shapes and sizes I have. This is very adaptable, so you can get into your stash and bind things similar and make something very similar. This turns out really pretty. The first thing, you can see I've made all these components back here. I'm going to show you the beads that I made those components out of. Then I'm going to show you how to make each component. And then we will put the necklace together. So in your treasure bag, you have these flat beads. We've already used the two black in another project. I'm going to use these flat round. I think they are 12 by 6, I believe, millimeter round, and they're flat. Let me see if I can find it here. 12 by 6 flat round imitation Austrian crystal beads. So anything that you have that's a large crystal will work. You do not have to have these, but anything similar will work nice. You could even use something a different shape completely. Be fine. You just need something that's sizable. You could even use a large 12 millimeter round pearl bead, whatever you would like. So just something sizable, and we're going to be using 4. So 2 in blue and 2 in clear. Then you have this package that has 5 of each of these Austrian crystals here, and these are 9 by 7 rondelle shaped basically, and we already used the black, so we're going to use the 5 blue and the 5 clear. So you will want to have something, an 8 by 6 rondelle will work really fine for this also. So you will be using those, and then you have the strand of flat round 6 by 4 frosted flattened crystals, so they're faceted on the side and they're frosted on the top. Now, I already used these in one tutorial. However, I only used like 11 of them. So I still had like 90 of them left because there's like 100 of them on here, so I had 89, something like that left. Of course, that's an approximation. There's approximately 100 beads on here. So I'm using what I had left from my original strand, and I have them in components over here. And then these are, what are they, 6 by 4 also. These are just rice-shaped beads. I'm going to be using some of these, the whole strand. We haven't used those yet. And then we did use some of these 6 millimeter bicones, but we only used 16 of them, so I'm going to be using what's left of my strand of the bicones. So then you're going to need a couple of head pins. Now, the head pins I have are ball head pins, which are generally pretty thin. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to use your head pins on here. If you have a thicker head pin that isn't a nice little skinny bendable head pin like these, then you can use them. I'll just show you how to adapt it to this design. On this one, I have, you can have all one length as long as it's the longer length, but I have 2 lengths, and I have about 1.5 inches. It's not quite 1.5 inches, and then I have about 3/4 inch, I believe. Yeah. So with these, I'm using the short ones and the long ones. So it's easier if you have them both, but if you don't, just have a long one that you can cut down for the shorter ones. I got mine on Amazon. I got a package of all different sizes, lengths, I mean, of these, so you can find these ball head pins quite easily. I get most of my findings, I just go on Amazon and put in ball head pins and find stuff. You can get a big variety package of these. So, and they're fairly cheap. I don't carry a bunch of this stuff at my store, not the findings. So you can get these fairly easily. Otherwise, if you have a thicker regular head pin, again, I will show you how to use those. You're going to need about, I wrote it down, you're going to need about 44 of the long pins, and then you're going to need about 100 of the short pins. So make sure you get a fairly decent sized package. If you just get the long ones, then get like 200 of them. And that will work really well. Or maybe you just have some in your stash. And then we are going to be using a few bead caps. You don't have to have the bead caps for this, but I'm going to be using just a few of these stainless steel colored kind of star flower bead caps, and I do have these in my store if you want some, but not necessary. You can use whatever you have in your stash also. And then I'm going to be using 2 crimp beads, and these are size 2 beadlon crimp beads, crimp tubes. I'm going to be using a toggle from my stash because these were actually in the Christmas bag, so if you had the Christmas bag you can use one. But because I'm using mostly silver with this, I'm not going to use the toggle clasp that is in the bag. However, if you want to do this with the gunmetal color, you can always get gunmetal head pins and such and go ahead and use that clasp. It's up to you. Then I am also, from my own stash, going to use some chain. So I will probably use about 6 inches of chain. I'm not positive on that yet because I haven't put it together yet here. But that's what we're going to be using. So you can use whatever you would like for your crystal. You do not have to have a rice shape. You do not have to have a bicone. You can use them all bicone. You can use some 4mm rounds instead of these flat ones. A 4mm bicone would work beautifully. And you can use, like I said, rondelles instead of these flat ones. And rondelles for the rondelle shaped one. You can use completely round ones for these. It doesn't matter. Just pick out a whole bunch of crystal that you think complements, the colors complement each other, and come back and let's get started on this project. To start this project, we're going to make some components, and I'm going to show you how to make each component, and then I will tell you exactly how many you need to make of them. This is one of the 9x7 rondelle shaped crystals that was in the bag. You can use an 8x6 crystal if you'd like, and you're just going to drop one of the longer head pins onto the bead onto the longer head pin. And then you're going to grab some round nose pliers. We're going to make a wrapped loop on this one. So we're going to place the round nose pliers not that far down because we don't want a big loop, but we don't want a tiny one either. So we're just going a little ways down on the pliers here. And that's going to make the size, the diameter of the plier will make this diameter of your loop here. Then we're going to hold our hand parallel to the bead mat and push this wire over the back prong of the plier. And then we're going to turn our hand vertical and place that plier right into the bend we just created. And then we're going to bring this excess wire over the top of the plier. As we get to where it's sticking straight out, we are then going to turn our hand, our wrist, so that our hand becomes parallel, and we're going to draw the excess part underneath the plier. So now what we have is a loop that looks like this. Then I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers, and I'm actually going to switch hands. So I'm going to, with my left hand, hold this loop with my flat nose pliers, and then I'm going to bring this excess piece basically the same angle that the pliers are, just like this. And then get a grip here. Then I'm going to grab another pair of pliers, and I'm going to start wrapping this excess wire around the wire that's going down into the bead. And it's going to take probably 3 or 4 turns until my wraps are right on top of that bead, holding it securely. Wants to slip out of my plier here. Okay, so now I have a wrap just like this, and I'm going to grab my cutters, my flush cutters, get as close as I can and snip that excess piece off, and then I'm going to grab my little pliers and I'm going to tuck in that excess piece of wire so that it's not pokey. I'll straighten up my loop. And sometimes, if you have one of these pairs of pliers, you can just use the grooves in it. So this is a combination chain nose and crimping tool. I rarely use the crimping part because I like my regular crimping tool I've been using for years, but I will use it to tuck in the excess wires. Works really good for that. So if you like those, this was purchased on Amazon and it's Xeron crimp tool. Okay, so now I have made one of these units with my my wrapped loop. You are going to make 4 in blue and 4 in clear. And you have 5 each of these beads, so you're going to reserve 2 of them. Just leave them alone, don't wrap them, but the other, wrap them. So you will have 8 of these in total. Oh, I have an extra one in there. So I want 4 of the clear and 4 of the blue, and then 2 without anything, and then set those aside. Then we're going to make a component like this. We're going to make them on both the clear and the blue. We'll make 4 of them. It's the same process. We will use the long eye pin again and drop the bead on, and then we will grab the round nose pliers, place them right on top of that wire there, right on top of the bead, just like this. Push the wire back, change the angle of our hand, making it vertical to the bead mat now. Bring the wire over the top prong there of the plier, and when you get it over the top, turn your wrist and force that wire, that excess part underneath, like this. Then you have a loop, and then you grab your flat nose, and I'm going to switch my hands and then just put this at the angle, the excess is at the angle that my plier is at, so basically parallel to it, and then I am going to start to wrap. Now this, of course, takes up more room on the wire because it's a bigger bead, so you'll have less wrapping to do. And I'm going to do about 3. Not necessarily less wrapping to do, just less wire to do it with, really. And that's what I have. And now I can clip this down, tuck it in, and that's what I have. It's like this. And like I said, you're going to make 2 in blue and 2 in clear, and just put those aside. Then we're going to make some units with the bicones, and they're going to be a little bit different than the other units we're going to make, as far as we're going to wrap them a little bit more with the longer head pins. Now, I wanted to show you very quickly, if you do not have a soft head pin to do this with, I will show you how to do it, just a basic wrap. You don't have to do the wrap I'm going to do, which probably makes no sense yet, so I'll tell you in a second. But first, some of these head pins are a little bendy. So what I'm going to do is grab a bicone here. Didn't leave one for myself to wrap. drop it on the head pin here, and this is the long head pin. Now I am going to grab my flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to bend this wire just a little bit above that bead. I'm going to bend it straight over, and then I'm going to grab my pliers here, and I'm just a little ways down. I don't want a huge loop, but I'm going to just do like a coiled loop for this. So I'm going to start at the end, and I'm going to turn as far as I can, and then I'm just going to turn my pliers over. So I just turned them over, put them back into the same spot on my plier, and I'm just going to start to coil. Try to stay in the same spot, don't move down, and just keep coiling until you've coiled it all the way to the bead. Now, because these are really soft, I wanted to do a coil like this, and it will also give me some spacing on my necklace. When I use these, it'll kind of be like a spacing bead. However, if you do not have a soft eye pin that you can do this with, then you can just make a basic loop. Let me grab a regular eye pin. I should have one somewhere here. I'm going to show you, actually they're head pins, not eye pins, but I'm going to show you with just a regular, this is a different color, but I'm just going to show you how you can do all of these loops instead of wrapping them into coils. And you can drop one of your beads, get another bead here, onto the head pin like this. Place your straight nose ply or your flat nose pliers right above that bead. Bend the wire over into a right angle here, just like this, right over your finger, and then cut it down. The excess here, just cut it down to about 1/4 inch. Then grab your round nose pliers and just turn until you can't turn anymore. Then turn over your pliers and continue to roll. And you can make your loops like this. Now, because this is a strong one, then you can just open and close your loops and put them on, or you can just drop them on like I'm going to. But because this is a strong one, it's not going to come loose. Now, if I did that with these really skinny little ones, it would just come loose and fall off of our piece. So if you have a heavy bunch of eye pins, you can use them. You can also drop a seed bead down on the head pin before you put your bead on, and that will kind of look like a ball at the end. Since we're using ball head pins here, you can just modify what you have and use it instead of having to run out and buy ball head pins or whatever. You can just modify that. So I have shown you how we're going to make the bicones. Just take your long one and wrap it just like I did, and we are going to make 30 of them. So I have 30 of these wrapped, and we're going to go ahead and push them aside. And then we're going to use, for our short head pins, we're going to use the 6x4 flat rounds and the rice beads, or you can use a bicone or a little 4mm round, or you can use a 6mm round for that, for this size here if you would like, and then maybe a 4mm bicone for these, however you would like. And we are just going to use one of the shorter head pins here, and we're going to drop the bead onto the head pin. Same way with the rice bead, you're just going to drop it on, just like this. And then we're going to bend the wire over the top of the bead, like this. Hold on to it. I hold on to the bead between my fingers here, and then I just begin to roll. So I want to be just a little ways down my plier here, having the wire flush with the plier, and I'm just going to turn as far as I can, then turn my plier over, and then I'm going to just start rolling and coiling a loop, just like this, until it touches the bead. And this is what you should have, just like this. and make sure you don't have any pokies. If you do this tight enough, you roll it tight enough, and it should not, I don't have any pokies on here. So if you do, then you can just grab your pliers and kind of push it down. So I can just grab right where it ends here and just kind of push it down and make sure it's not sticking up. So you're going to do that with both the rice beads and the clear flat round beads. And I have made my flat rounds, I have made 62 of them because I had 100 beads on my thing, and I used on my strand, and I used some in a previous project. I've used about 60, I had about 62 left, and that's what I've used. And you can supplement them with something else if you don't have that many left. You can use, like I said, a 4mm bicone or a 6mm round or crystal or something like that. That'll work just fine. I have made 30 in my rice strand, and then I've left the rest of my strand loose here so that I can use it to string with between my components. So 30 of these and 62 of these. So this is the flat round, 62, 30, 30 of the bicones. Is that right? Yep, 30 of the bicones. And then you're going to have some loose rice beads left over. Just push those aside. And then you're going to have 2 of your large beads, your large flat round, or whatever you're using that you would like. Even those big flat bicones that I have in my store and that I put in other bags will work really, really well for this too. You can use those. Anything sizable, you'll have 4 of those. And then you'll have 4 in blue of the 9x7s, 4 in clear, and then 1 loose of the clear and 1 loose of the blue. And then you should be ready to make your necklace. Okay, so I forgot a pretty crucial ingredient here. So when I was doing my material list, I did not tell you you would need bead stringing wire. You will. This is soft flex medium. And if you do not have soft flex medium, I'll show you the diameter here so you can use something similar. And the diameter is 0.019 inches or 0.48 millimeters. And like I said, that's soft flex medium, and I've cut about 22 inches of it. And then I just kind of put the ends together, bend it in half, just so that I can somewhat kink it. Soft flex doesn't really kink, but I just have a little fold there, just so I can see where the center is and I can start working my center. So it makes it kind of a heart shape once you do that. And you don't necessarily have to, but it's kind of helpful. Then we're going to get our biggest component. So whatever you've used for your biggest component, mine is the big flat rounds here. And we are going to put all 4 of them on, alternating the colors. So I'm just going to pick up the white one, and then the blue, or clear, I guess, and then clear, and then blue, and drop them down to my little fold here, right there. It kind of holds them where I want them to be. Then I am going to pick up, I have got some of these little flat rounds here. You can use bicones, you can use 4mm rounds, whatever you'd like. And then I am going to pick up 1 of these, and then I'm going to use one of the rice bead components, which would be really good as a bicone. So I'm going to pick up 1 of those, get it on there properly. I don't like that wrap. Let me get a different one. And pick up 1 of these, and then a clear, and I'll show you what I'm doing. I know my hands are in the way. I'll show you what I have. Then I'm going to pick up on the other side, I'm going to pick up a flat round and 1 of my rice components. That one has too big of a wrap. And then 1 of my clear rounds. And then I'm going to pick up my 6mm bicones on either side. Now I'm going to grab my 2 ends, put them together, And bring this to the side. And then I'm going to pick up a bead cap. You don't have to use a bead cap. You can just slide your crystal down when I show you which one we're going to use here. But I've got a bead cap. I'm putting both the wires through the bottom of the bead cap. I'm going to slide it down, and I'm going to push this down to my beads, and that's going to cluster them. And then I am going to pick up one of my 9x7 rondelles that I reserved, that I did not wrap. So you've got a blue one and you've got a white one, or whatever you're using, an 8x6 rondelle, whatever. I'm going to use my blue one first, I think. And I'm going to put both of these wires through this rondelle. And I'm going to drag it down. If they don't go through real easy, turn your bead over. One side is usually drilled a little bit bigger than the other side, and you can get them through by doing that. Now I have drugged this down, and this is what I have. I have a little cluster of beads here. A cluster of crystal. A crystal cluster. And then I'm going to pick up another bead cap, and this time I'm going to go from the inside, and I'm going to drag this down to the crystal I just put on. Now, arrange your cluster a little. You don't want it so tight that they don't look pretty and they don't move around nice. One side is going to look more metallic than the other because you're going to see your wraps a little bit, but it should look something like this. Just no matter what you're using, it should just be kind of clustery like this. And if you don't like it, do it again until you make it look the way you want it to look. And, you know, you could subtract, you can add more of the smaller components around the bigger ones, however you want to do it. Then we're going to pick up another bead cap, and from the bottom we're going to put the beads, or the bead stringing wire through the bead cap, both of them, and draw this down. And then I'm going to pick up my clear rondelle and put the strands through it like this. And then I'm going to pick up another bead cap. And like I said, you don't have to have the bead caps. You can just put them on there. You could put a little seed bead in between if you want to separate them, whatever. Whatever kind of things you have on hand, just use them. Then I'm going to go through this bead cap on the inside, again, drop down a bead cap. So this is what I have now. I have a little cluster with 2 rondelles on top of it. And now I can spread my wires apart. Let me get you out of here. And spread my wires apart. Make sure I like the way things are looking. And then I am just going to start stringing some beads on here. So I'm going to string my components. And what I'm going to start with is probably like 3. You can do this any way you want. I'm going to use 3 of these clear little flat round guys and drop them down on either side. And then I am going to pick up a bicone on either side. And like I said, you can do this any way you want. You can always slide them off and put them back on until you like them. And now I have those beads. I am going to pick up one of the rice beads that I reserved. This can be a bicone, this can be whatever kind of spacer you want. And I have not wrapped this one, so I'm just sliding it on to my wire and bringing it down to the beads. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Now when I push this all down, I've got another cluster, see? And I am going to then pick up, I think I'll use my blue first. I'm going to pick up one of the wrapped components of the 9x7s here and drop it down on either side. And like I said, you can arrange this any way you want. Just make a bunch of components and drop them on there till you like the way they look. I like this to be tighter and then the little bit bigger components on there. And this is just, it's just willy-nilly, however you want to do it. Now I'm going to put another rice bead on the other side of it. Just slide it down to my beads here. And then I'm going to pick up, I think I'll do a bicone. And see, because these bicones are wrapped with the longer one and they have a bigger wrap, they're going to give me more of a space between my beads. If you don't have that, if you just used a regular head pin and just did a regular wrap, then you can always drop some seed beads down, whatever you want to make sure that your beads look nice together. This is very forgiving. You can design it any way you would like. Now I'm going to put on a couple of my little short flats, round ones, on either side here. Of course, yeah, I did that right. Oops, that's a rice bead. I just try to keep it symmetrical on either side, but you don't even have to do that if you don't want to. You can make one side sleek and the other side full and bobbly. You can do this lots of ways. Just get creative with it. Drop the beads down any way you'd like. When we tighten this all, it's going to be really clustery like this. And now I am going to pick up another rice bead. Well, where'd you go, little guys? Oh, there you are. The ones that I did not wire wrap, I'm just going to drop one on either side again. These can be round beads if you want to drop down round beads in between. Those little silver beads that came in your bag, that will work good too. Or you have some little turquoise ones, you could do that. Let's see. Now I have the rice beads, and I think I'm going to put a rice bead, 2 of them, and then I'm going to drop my clear one down. So I'm going to make this a little bit different cluster here. Maybe put 2 rice beads on the other side of it too, my components. So I put on a rice bead on the beading wire, 2 on components, then my clear one, and then I'm going to put 2 on the other side of my clear one here. And then we get you in a little bit closer. I think you can see what I'm doing, but it's hard for me to tell. And then I am going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'll pick up 2 of these rice components, and then a clear. Actually, do I want that? Maybe I want some turquoise in there. I think I'm going to change my mind. Sorry guys, but I'm going to change my mind. See, and you can do this. You can just decide that you don't like how it's going and do it again. So I'm going to pull off onto the rice bead here. So right here, I stopped before I put on my bigger components in my rice beads. So I want to get a little color in there. So I'm going to drop a bicone down on either side. Come here. And then a rice bead. And then I'm going to put on my clear component, my longer one, my bigger one. And then I think I'll put another rice bead on the other side and another bicone on the other side. See if I like the way that looks. And again, like I said, just do it however you want. It doesn't matter. These bicones are a little bit different color than the blue in there, in the main ones, but you know, it's working for me. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I have got to remember what I did. Bicone and then rice bead. And then clear. And again, I'm not being truly specific because this can be done any way you want to do it. And you may not even be using the same beads I'm using, so truly doesn't matter. All right, so what I've done now is I have got my big beads on there, and now I'm just going to do a bunch of clusters of the small ones. And actually I have two more of each of these. So you can either reserve these for earrings, or you can reserve one set for earrings. I think I'll reserve the blue ones for earrings, and because I'll reserve the clear ones, and then I'll put these two on here. So I know you guys are probably thinking, God, she's lost her mind. She's usually easy to follow. But like I said, this is just do it how you want to do it. It's not anything specific. I'm going to drop down a rice bead on either side again. And I'll put a few components in between, maybe a couple of these little glass ones, the little clear ones, and then a rice bead. And then I'm going to do a couple more of my flat rounds on this side. Just remember what you did on one side, do it on the other side. And then I'm going to pick up, I think I'll go ahead and do my bigger blue ones on either side here. And a couple more little clear glass on either side of them. So two of the little flat round ones, and then two of the little flat round ones on this side. And we're just going to continue stringing and make your clusters the way you want to. If you want to spread these bigger units out further on your necklace, you can do that. You can string it any way you want. I'm not going to sit here and bore you to death with stringing them on, because you get the idea. It's random. I'm just keeping it symmetrical. So I can randomly put them on one side, but I have to do the same random order on this side just to keep it symmetrical. But you can put them on any way you want. I'm going to continue stringing mine. I'll come back and show you basically what mine looks like and how much length I'm going to take up on the beading wire itself. And then once I've used all my components, I will come back and I will show you how to crimp off either side and put some chain on the back. Okay, I'm continuing to put my components on, but I wanted to remind you, every few components you want to drop down a rice bead in between. See, when I hold this together now, you can see that the coiled units make space also, but also the rice beads kind of push the beads together and make your clusters. So you want to drop something in between. It doesn't necessarily have to be a rice bead. That's what I'm using from my bag, but something in between every so often. So even here I put several more components than some other spaces, but you want to have at least something in between, maybe 4 or 5 of them at the max. 3, 4, 5, then stick on a rice bead. Just make sure you keep it even on both sides, so you're dropping down the same beads, and then you're putting your rice bead in between, the same on this side as you are on this side. And we'll be back. Okay, so I have strung most all of my components onto my beading wire, and you can see on my beadboard I'm about 5.5 inches on either side. So this is a nice front for the necklace. Whenever you go from the 5 to the 5, that's pretty good coverage for the front of a necklace. And I reserved 4 of my bicones, 4 of my flat rounds, and 4 of my rice beads to make my earrings. I also reserved 2 of these components, the 9x7 rondelles. So those I put aside for my earrings, and then I did have a few of these left. So I just guessed when I made how many components I made in the beginning. You can put all the rest of them on. I just got to the point to where I thought it looked good, and so I stopped. But I used all the bicones and pretty much all the rice beads. I just had some of the little flat rounds left. And you can also make more of a dramatic earring than I'm going to make. I'll show you what that looks like so you can reserve more. Anyway, this is how I want to measure mine. And then I will cut chain for the back of it to make probably an 18-inch. It'll be 18, 19 inches. So I'll cut a few, 1, 2, 3. I'll cut about 3.5, 4 inches of chain, probably 4 inches of chain, and then put my clasping on. And I'll show you how to do that. Let me show you what this looks like now that I have finished. When you lay it down, it doesn't look as pretty as when it's up, but this is what it looks like. I think it's very pretty. And when it's hanging on the neck, you don't see as much metal. You see more crystal. It lays more like a cluster like this. So it's really pretty. And the front, of course, when it's laying down, clusters really pretty too. So let's see if I, or when it's hanging, see if I can show you that a little bit. So it turned out really pretty. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some chain. So let me cut a few inches of chain. I'll be back and I will show you how to put that on. Okay, so now I have to cut 2 pieces of chain about 3 3/4 inches long, just to make the length that I want for my necklace. And that is, I am aiming for about 18 to 19 inches in total from the top here. Of course, this will lay deeper on your neck, but I'm just counting the area that's going to go up around the neck. Then I have 2 of my crimp beads out, this is size 2. This chain is from my own stash. You can use whatever chain you'd like if you're using silver findings like I am. I just had more silver ball type of eye pins, so I'm using silver. If you have the hematite color, of course, you can use the hematite chain in your bag. You can use whatever color findings you want with this. I'm dropping down, I have clipped off this end. I'm dropping down a crimp tube. I'm going to squish all of my stuff together here. Make sure all the components are together. There's no gap. Everything's tight. Down here is nice and clustered. And then I am going to grab my chain and I'm going to drop the last link onto my beading wire. Make sure your links are closed tightly, and then we're going to go through the crimp tube and see if I can go through that bead too, but I don't think I can. So I'm just going to go through the crimp tube itself. And then I am going to hold on to the stable side of the loop here and pull my beading wire through until I get it to the size that I want. Now scoot your crimp tube down, making sure everything is cinched tightly. Hold on to the stable side again, and then just adjust the size of your loop around your chain. You can pull it pretty tight with chain, but you don't want it so tight that you have no movement. So I'm going to pull this pretty small, just like this. Let me get you close so you can see. It's just about there. And then I'm going to move this piece of wire over so that my 2 wires inside my crimp tube are parallel. They are not crossing each other, like this. Push my crimp tube back down, make sure everything's tight, grab my crimping tool, and then in the second divot, the one closest to the handle here, I'm going to place this crimping tube right in the middle of that divot, straighten everything out, and squeeze. And now I have a nice little V groove right in between those 2 wires that are lying parallel inside that crimp tube. And then I am just going to place the 2 little tubes that formed around those wires against my crimp tube in the first divot. So there's 2 divots on your crimping tool. You're going to go into the one closest to the tip of the tool now, sideways with the crimp tube, and you're going to squeeze, just like that. Now you have a really nice little crimp. You can put a cover over it if you'd like, but I'm going to see if I can cut this with my flesh cutters really close so that I don't have to do that. And I was able to get a fairly decent cut there. So I like to be able to go through the beads a little bit so that I can actually hide that little end, but you know, sometimes you can put a crimp tube cover over that too. Now we are going to get a couple of jump rings. Let's see if I have a couple close by. And we're going to add our clasping. Let's see what I've got here. Oh, those are big. Get some small ones. Sorry, wasn't prepared. Like I said, you guys are probably thinking, man, she has just lost it this time. Oh well. I lost it a long time ago. I have 2 4mm round jump rings now, and I am going to grab my clasping and I'm just going to put it on, and then we'll go off camera and do the other side exactly the same way. Just make sure you cinch everything down tight so that you have no slack on your beading wire at all, because otherwise you won't get pretty clusters. And then just do everything the same way. So now I've opened my jump ring. I have put on my clasping end and my chain, and then I am going to close the jump ring. So I just opened it from side to side, and then I'm just going to close it. So what I mean, let me show you, just in case there's very, very beginners here. Hold on to your jump ring, and your opening's here. Hold on to half of it with one plier, the other half with the other, open it. Then once you've dropped your clasping on, you're going to grab it again and close it the same way, just like that. Now, this side of my necklace is finished. Now all this stuff in the way here. And I'm going to go ahead and finish the other side exactly the same way, and then I will come back and show you what I ended up with. Okay, so as you can see, this is what the finished necklace looks like. I went ahead and did the side here with my chain, doing my crimping. I also, when I ended my necklace, put 2 rice beads on the end just to narrow it down from the components, and I forgot to mention that, but it's really, truly not that important. You want to make sure you end with at least 1 rice bead so that it cinches your last cluster together. However, you can add 2 if you would like. And this fills in the front of my neck really well. It's 19 inches, and it looks really good on the neck. So that's what that looks like. Now we're going to make an earring. I already made one. So this is what it looks like. It's just a little cluster too. You can do this however you would like, putting your components on, but it's a very simple process. I saved 1, or actually 2. You're going to double this. I saved the 9x7 rondelles in clear. Then I have, for 1 earring, I have 2 of my bicones, 2 of my flat rounds, and 2 of my rice beads. And then I have a 7mm round jump ring. You can use a 6 or an 8. 8 would probably be better. And then I have 2 4mm round jump rings, and I have an ear wire. And let me scoot this aside. What we're going to do is we are going to grab our 6mm or 7 or 8, whatever you have, jump ring, and we are going to open it. So I'm placing my pliers on the side of the opening, which is right here. I'm going to use another pair, twist it open, and now I'm going to just hold on to the edge of it here so I can put all my components on here. So I'm going to start with, let's see how I did this one. Okay, I did, let's see, I'm going to start with a round. No. I have to remember how I did this. Okay, I'm going to start with a bicone crystal, and then I'm going to start with a rice bead, or drop a rice bead next. And then I'm going to put on my flat round. And then I'm going to put on my 9x7 bicone component through the loop here. And then I'm just going to reverse that. So I'll put on my round, flat round first, my rice bead, and then my bicone. And you can do it however you want to arrange the beads, that's fine. And you can use whatever components you want to use. And then I'm just going to close this jump ring the same way I opened it. So just twist it back. Make sure it's closed tightly. Now I have two 4mm jump rings, and I'm going to go ahead and open one and hook it to the other one. Now that jump ring did not open nicely. It's all weird. Let me fix that. Maybe. There we go. So I have put one jump ring on the other one. Make sure that one is closed. I'll have to check and make sure. And then I'm just going to make sure that my beads are split, so I know that I have my components on either side, still on either side. I know I have my two bicones on the top here will end the sequence, so I'll go between them just to make sure I have the same amount on either side of my jump ring I'm connecting here. And then I'm going to close the jump ring. And then I'm going to make sure that this jump ring that I popped on here is closed too, because it's a little open. So I'm just going to find it there and close it nice and tightly. Okay, I think I got that. And you can either put your earring on before you close your jump ring, or you can open your ear wire. This one's already open, so I'm just going to go ahead and open it a little more, and I'm going to drop it on that second jump ring here. Okay, it's getting late, can you tell? There we go. Now I'm going to close the ear wire the same way I opened it, just like I opened jump rings. Just close it back. And now I have a set of earrings to match my necklace. And like I said, you can get creative with that. Do it however you want. You could reserve the blue one to have more color in it, however you want to do it. But those are the ones I reserved, so this is how these look. And then here's the necklace. And I'll back off so you can see. And it's really very pretty. It's very crystally, a little over the top. I like that. I like sparkle. So this, to me, is just a really pretty. If you have a nice little blue top to go with this, that would be really pretty. Or whatever, black would be good too. Anyway, that's what that looks like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.